What's real? What's deception? What should we be paying attention to? What is it that's driving us insane?
The world will not be the same. People laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remember these lines from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita.
The New York Stock Exchange, the Nikkei, and the Hang as Manhattan prepares for a massive evacuation in other cities around the world. People are voluntarily evacuating population centers.
Something happening here.
You're listening to this. You're listening to this. You are the resistance. You are the resistance.
Truth Connections.
I'm going to a higher place.
People fear what they don't understand and what they can't see.
Returning to America, my son.
Something tells me I should go back to my teacher.
You do well to heed the inner voice. Sit here beside me and look. Tell me what you see.
He's got a crystal ball just like this one. And Uncle Frank's looking into it. What did you see, Uncle Frank?
I saw this house. You, all of you.
Well, what about it? Why did you jump up like that, Frank?
My son,
I want you to get this.
do not fear for them. Have I not given you the 3 secrets?
Yes, my teacher.
They should be enough. But now, I give you the most precious gift. The emerald casket of the 3 times 3.
But it's yours, my teacher.
I need it no longer. I'm going to a higher place. Take the casket and remember, there is danger in all knowledge, but in fear is the greatest peril.
I know. Still, I hesitate to take the emerald.
It is written that you have taken it. For countless ages, I am going to a higher place.
Superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star is an illusion.
I'm going to a higher place. A higher place. I'm going to a higher place.
The word superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star, man, is an illusion.
Good evening. Welcome back to Truth Connections. I'm here with my co-host, Rand Porter. Hey, Rand.
Hey, Kathy. How's it going?
How are you?
I am great.
Awesome. Our featured song this evening was called Higher Place, and it was by Indigo Angel. Back this evening for part 2, astrology, is Santos Bonacci. He will continue to discuss the topics of astrology, astrotheology, religion, science, philosophy. Last week, in part 1, we touched on astrology's history, the misnomers, the number 12 and its houses, and the salts of salvation, and much more. After this, if you haven't heard part 1, I recommend you go back and check it out, and other videos by Santos for that matter. It's some of the best educational tools on the web, in my humble opinion. At this time, I'd like to welcome back Santos. Santos, how are you?
Oh, very well, Kathy and Rand. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Where were we? I know you might want to recap a little bit. It's completely up to you.
Yep, that'll be a good idea. It's a vast subject, so recapping would be very good. I did establish last week that astrology is based on 12, and I showed that. It always begins with Aries and ends with Pisces. Aries is 1, Pisces is 12. And so as you contemplate the signs, you can contemplate numerologically. So you will always understand that Aries is the number 1. And when you do that, you can understand why Arians are the way they are. Contained and confident, sometimes arrogant, and it butts with its head. You see, so it's placed there as a symbol of positive energy.
The I am.
Yeah, I am. He doesn't say I am. He's more like I. You can forget about the am. Yeah, it's all about one.
Ego. Sounds like a little bit of ego going on there.
Yeah, and it's not malicious. You see, there's positive and negative in all signs. So usually Arians can be very, very sweet and friendly and honest and kind, like the lamb. You see, you've got to look at their other side. The lamb is such a humble animal, and it's very, very sweet, and it's a good friend. Does things honestly and straightforwardly. But the ram, on the other hand, he's cocky and he wants to catch all the girls, all the ewes. So he's got to do a bit of headbutting, you see. So that's why the ram is placed there. The ram, if you look at all the animals in the zodiac, the ram is definitely, undoubtedly, the most positive of all of them. It embodies positivity. Remember last week we spoke about the 12 numbers that exist. And the first trinities or 4 triads in 12, the first 3 numbers are positive, 1, 2, and 3, and correspond with the element of gold. The second triad is 4, 5, and 6, negative. They are the naughtiest numbers. Death, hexing, upside-down pentagrams, there's a whole heap of negative magic going with them. They correspond with silver and negativity. Then from 7 to 9, you have the neutral. These are neutral numbers, and then from 10 to 12 you've got the transitory numbers, you see. And the glyphs in the zodiac correspond not only in nature, but also in those elements of gold, silver, bronze, and iron. The 4 ages, the golden age, the silver age, the bronze, and the iron age, which we have just come out of. But if we go back to Aries, the ram, he starts the spring season of gold, and he is positive. Then the next cardinal sign is Cancer, and she's silver. Cancer's ruled by the moon, therefore that's the silver quadrant. And she's negative. You see, the crab is different to the ram. The crab retreats. The crab collects its family members, and in a negative, defensive way, she secures them safely in her little house.
The crab feels.
Yeah, they're a feeling. And then, of course, you come to the scales of Libra. Well, what does Libra imply? Scales imply neutrality, balance. So there's your neutral quadrant. As I said, there's a positive triad, then a negative, then a neutral. And the last quadrant with Capricorn, you see Capricorn is the transitory one, and that's why the fish goat is transitioning from the fish to the goat, symbolizing the transitional nature of those 3 numbers, you see. And if we go back to the elements, the sun exalts in Aries, so the sun is always there at the beginning, always, the sun exalting in Aries. Now, astrologers will know what I mean by exalting. Every house of the zodiac has its ruling planet. You see, Leo is ruled by the sun. That's the only sign that the sun rules. Cancer is ruled by the moon. And then the other 5 visible planets have 2 signs each. In order, Mercury has Gemini and Virgo. Venus has Taurus and Libra. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. Jupiter has Pisces and Sagittarius. Saturn, Aquarius and Capricorn. But the lights, the luminaries, only have 2. But although the Sun rules and has its dignity in Leo, it exalts in Aries. So there's the gold, you see, the golden age in spring. March the 21st, there is the exaltation of the sun. The golden sun glows throughout spring. Spring is always the golden age. Summer is the silver age. It's probably the most loved season because, you eat the ripened fruits in summer. You can swim at the beach. The warmth is beautiful. It's comforting. But spring, of course, has also got its magic. It's golden. The blossom, the young life springing forth. You've got, young kids and young lambs frolicking around. And it's just birds, everything's singing. It's golden. And the silver summer, of course, well, there's Cancer, and that's ruled by the moon. There's your silver. Then when you get to Libra, the ruler of Libra is Venus. She's copper. Copper takes the place of bronze quite easily, and in fact it does. In many lists, the ages are gold, silver, copper, and iron. They don't even mention bronze, you see, so it depends which list you're referring to. But there it is. There's the copper age, the copper triad, the neutral, and neutral, of course, because what is bronze? Well, bronze is made of tin and copper, is it not? Therefore, you have a male element, a male metal, tin for Jupiter. Copper is Venus. When you put those together, you get bronze, the Bronze Age, and so that's neutral because it doesn't have a gender. Gold is definitely masculine. That's a masculine, positive gender metal. So is silver. It's feminine. It's undoubtedly feminine. But bronze is neutral, you see. And then you come to Capricorn, and Mars exalts in Capricorn, and there's the iron. You can understand how the springtime is the golden season, and it's positive. The summer is the silver season, and it's negative. The autumn is the bronze season, and it's neutral. And then the winter is the iron, and it is transitory, waiting for the Lamb of God to reappear, Aries. Because from the goat to the lamb, the sheep and the goats, you see, in the scriptures you hear about the sheep and the goats a lot. In the New Testament, Jesus says, when I come into my power in the kingdom of God, I will separate the sheep from the goats. And in Daniel, it talks about a ram and a he-goat that are constantly at war with each other. Yeah, of course they are, because Capricorn rules the solstice, and Aries rules the equinox, and that is the cross that the sun must bear every year as it goes through those 4 cardinal points. So today I want to focus on those 4 cardinal points and explain how astrology is based on these tropical points, you see, regardless of the slippage of precession. It matters not that there is about 30 degrees of slippage in the zodiac. It doesn't matter. And this is where scientists like to catch the unenlightened and the unwary ones, and they'll write articles about the Babylonians rocked up 2,500 years ago, invented this silly science called astrology, which has been debunked all throughout history, and they coincided the constellations with the tropical points, the cardinal points, and everything was in sync. But since then, the stars have slipped out, and they will slip out continually until every 25,000 years or so they sync up again, you see. There is a slippage. True astrology does not pay attention to the slippage. If you're going to pay attention to the slippage, you will commit a great error, because everything is based on the tropical points. And you see, this, if you remember the image of the man from last week, remember Aries is in the cerebrum at the top of the head.
Yes.
And then the 2 fish, Pisces, are the feet. Just remember that. And just remember that the sun every year goes through that body, straight through the middle of that body, just as it goes through the ecliptic in the sky. Same thing. So, on March the 21st, the sun enters your cerebrum, and it stays there for a month, 30 degrees. And then it enters the cerebellum part of the head, Taurus, and it stays there for 30 days, 30 degrees. And then it enters Gemini in the latter part of spring. And Gemini is a mutable sign. Mutability means change and transition. And as Marcus Manilius, the great astrologer, said, the mutable signs are splitting. They do not contain the true essence of the season that they belong to, for they divide the season. You see, spring is clearly defined in Aries, and it's absolutely established in Taurus, the blossom. In fact, in May, toward the end of Taurus, I think it's the 20th of May, the Romans celebrated Flora, the season of the blossom, the flowers. And in Japan, Aries and Taurus is all about Sakura season, the flowers. So Aries defines spring, Taurus establishes it, and Gemini comes along and wrecks it. The mutable air of Gemini just parts it in two ways and then invites the Cancer summer. See, Cancer comes after Gemini, and then summer is established. The sun is in the Tropic of Cancer. It's hot. The crab is there to define where the sun is and tell you that the sun is in the crab, and therefore summer begins. The dog days. Sirius is in the first degrees of Cancer, and so when the sun is conjunct Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, she adds her warmth to the sun, and she is the dog. Sirius is the canine from Canis Major, so that's the dog that brings in the dog days. Those 2 or 3 very, very hot weeks of Cancer Leo, you know. July the 4th, that hot, oppressive heat of Sirius being conjunct her son, Jesus Christ. That's Isis and Jesus married. That's the marriage of the sun and Isis. He always rejoices, the sun, when he hits the Tropic of Cancer, because he knows he's going to be with his mother, Sirius.
Interesting.
And, yeah. And together they make that warmth of summer, and they ripen the fruits together. And this is why the ripened fruits of Leo are much more desirable than the first fruits of, say, Cancer, Gemini, and all of those first fruits. It's the ripened fruits because they're mature and they have all the goodness in them. You see, if you pick a fruit before it ripens, then you don't get all the proper goodies that the fruit. The fruit should actually fall naturally from the tree and be picked off the ground. And people who have fruit trees should pay constant attention to this, and so that they don't leave the fruit rotting, but pick them up, and those are the ones to be eaten because they have all the goodness in it from that conjunction, of Sirius and the sun.
The vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, minerals. Yep, that's right. And you see, the whole cycle is perfect. There's nothing. I can go on for hours and hours because I've studied these cycles all my life, and I can go hours and hours and show you all the qualities and the characteristics of every month and every degree of every month, and prove conclusively this science to be the one and only true mother of all sciences. You see, this is why it frustrates me sometimes when ignoramuses come along and say, "Oh, astrology is from the devil. My pedophile priest told me that." I don't know why I put pedophile with priest. Was that a slip? I don't know. Is there any reason why I would have done that?
I haven't the slightest idea, Santos.
Nah, that was wrong. I'll take that back. That's
too late.
Yeah. But see, let's have a look at what the planets do when they are in the sign. When the sun is in Aries and people are born at that time, these people will be number one. They know they're number one. I'm Arian, March the 24th, and I've got an older Aquarian sister, an older Capricorn sister. They are the 2 Saturnians in my family. Then I came along, the firstborn, Aries. And then I had another sister immediately after that, and she's Libran. and then a Scorpio brother, and then a Libran brother. So, the two Saturnians and the two Martians, because my Scorpion brother, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, so we're both the fighters. Me and my brother Peter, we're very, very physical. Mars is very martial, very active, and we look alike. The Saturnians look alike, the Martians look alike, and the Venetians, the two Librans, David and Bruna, my sister, they look like twins too. It's amazing, you know. When you understand astrology, then you understand all things. I've always wondered why people have mistaken me for my brother. He's 5 years younger than me. He's a Scorpio, and I've always wondered why, you know, I look so much like him and not like my brother David, who's a Libra. And then when you understand astrology, you know why. It's Mars. You see, we both have this skinny, very, very sinewy, very muscular sort of bodies. I'm a small build. I'm only like 5'6.5" or something like that. So I'm not too tall, and I'm very skinny, but I'm very strong. And so is my brother, very, very strong. And that's Mars, you see. So this is what the sun does. It defines you. The sun gives you more definition than the other planets. I'm going to go through all the planets and show what they do in all the signs, starting from Aries. So the sun will give the person born under Aries this oneness, you know. They want to be number one. They will headbutt and be aggressive to get their way if they have to. They don't lie down easily, Arians. And it also gives them physical features of probably a little bit of an sort of, the head is prominent of Arians. That most Arians have a larger than normal head, because that's where the sun is. Taurians come along. Now you've got to remember, Aries is fire, cardinal fire. Cardinal is the beginning, the start. Fixed is the middle. Mutable is the end. So Aries is cardinal fire, and fire is that intuition, the higher principles of the physical organism, you see, whereas the earth signs are the sensual, the senses. So Taurus comes along, fixed earth, with the senses fully intact. I mean, these people are so sensual, you see. And Taurus, the motto for Taurus is, I have. So these people will have, they're usually very good-looking people, Taurians, the women especially. They have beautiful necks and beautiful mouth and good voices, especially if Venus is there, because Venus is not far from the sun. So Venus is always lurking around. If the sun is in Taurus, then Venus will either be in Taurus or Aries or Gemini next door. And she may even be in Pisces or Cancer, the next sign. But it won't be more than that, because Venus can never be more than 48 degrees away from the sun, which is good, because the other planets that are 90 degrees away from the sun, or can go, you know, more than 90 degrees, then 90 degrees is called a square, and that's a bad aspect, you see. So because Venus can never go more than 48 degrees away from the sun, she can never be badly aspected with the sun. She is the perfect consort of the sun. She's always there near it. You look at any chart of any person who has ever lived, and you will see where the sun is in the chart, there is Venus next door, or in the same sign. So Taurians have Venus in Taurus. You'll find that they have very, very beautiful mouths, beautiful necks. They have, Venus brings beauty and form. Arians, on the other hand, who have Venus in Aries, they have beautiful eyes and a glow. Marilyn Monroe had Aries. She was a Geminian. She had Venus in Aries. The last degrees of Aries, very close to Taurus. So that's why her face, you know, she glowed. It's unmistakable, her Venetian features. It's unmistakable. Venus is right in the middle of her head, you see. And I've got family who have, my wife's daughter has Venus in Aries. She's Aryan, and she always gets picked up by modelling agencies all around town. Gucci has picked her up. She's done a lot of modelling, and she's exquisitely cute, like my wife.
Aw.
Yeah. And I've got a niece who's Aryan, my brother David's little daughter. She's 2 years old, and she's got Venus in in Aries, and she has the most amazing eyes. They are just so exquisite. But we'll get back to Venus, because Venus, she's an interesting one. We're focusing on the sun now, and we're going through the body to see what the sun brings. You see, the sun is the Christ. It's Jesus Christ. As above, it's the sun. As below, it's the consciousness. And it's the effect of the electric properties of the sun interacting with our bodies. Therefore, we must also have a Christ within. And we do. It's the beautiful oil, call it Christos, like the Greeks call it. It's the seed that comes from the cerebrum. And remember, we discussed what cerebrum means last week. Ceres, or sere, means seed or wax. Cereals. Ceres, the goddess of cereals, comes from that. So Aries produces this seed. The seed comes forth from the high heaven, and it just falls from the heavens like the manna, and it builds the rest of the body, you see. So as the sun goes through its signs and it hits Taurus, these people are usually, they're very inclined to love sitting on their leather couches and to have an extra dozen pair of shoes in their closets. They love material things.
Wealth, livelihood, and property.
Yeah. So, see, the number 2 appears. Aries is 1, Taurus is 2, Gemini is 3, Cancer is 4. We did this last week, you see. So 2 is doubling. So, of course, it's wealth. You've gone from 1 to 2, you've doubled your goods. The sun in Taurus is doubled. So it turns out to describe, in the second house of astrology, it describes the kind of wealth that you will have, you will attract. And especially if you have a good, a wealth-giving planet like Jupiter or Venus in your second house, well aspected, you're sure to have wealth. You know, you will attract wealth. You will have a doubling, you see. So, and these people, of course, they are so contrasting to the Arians. The Arians sort of naturally are inclined to slip into spiritual mode, you see. Not so eager to enjoy material things, because they don't have their senses activated like the Taurians. You know, and this does not condemn the Taurians in any way at all. They can be the most spiritual of all if they choose to, but they will always have the senses activated in a very, very powerful way. And Venus rules Taurus. So there's also this aspect of luxury that Venus gives. Venus brings in luxury and beauty and form. And negatively, she can bring laziness and lustfulness, you see. So that's probably why Taurians get a lot of flack about the materialism, because the negative side of Taurus can show up in that way, you see. Laziness, lustfulness, etc. Gemini. What does Gemini bring when the sun is there? Well, the sun is with his 2 brothers, Pollux and Castor, when he's in Gemini. Therefore, that amounts to 3, the sun and the 2 twins. So, all of a sudden, you have the number 3, the Trinity. And that's the end of the first positive triad. The spring, the golden age, ends with Gemini. And these people are very, very playful. Mutable air. Air has to do with mind. Now, these people are different to the Taurians before them, the sense people, and the intuition people of Aries. These people come along and they've got the mind activated. But they don't have one mind, they've got like 2 minds, you see. They've got twins inside of them. They are really, truly twin-like in their nature, which makes them very interesting people. They love to have fun. They're very cheeky. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, so they can be very cheeky. They like to play games and have some fun with you, if you like. They are very sanguine. All the air signs are sanguine. Sanguine meaning blood, life of the party. When a Gemini walks into the party, or a Libran, or an Aquarian, but in particular, more so, I would say Librans and Geminians, they absolutely light the place up. Everybody wants to hang out with them, because mentally, they're going to be a challenge. They're going to be interesting. They're going to have something in their minds. They've always got something in their minds going on, cooking, thinking. And Gemini also rules the lungs, the 2 arms and the lungs. So the sun favours these people in such a way. Cancer. When the sun enters Cancer and people are born there, the number 4 turns up. You see, 4 is like a place where you can get, out of 4, you can get like a box. Box has 6 sides of 4, you see. So 4 is usually depicting a house, you see. And so Cancer is the 4th sign of the zodiac, the 4th house, which has to do with the home. 4, property. Parents, of course, parents, because that also has to do with the number 4. Unrecorded wealth and private life. So there's 4, you see. And then the crab is there. She shows her homely nature, she loves to have her home in place, you see. She gathers her little children under her care and everything like that. So that's the home. These people are very, very emotional people. Water, cardinal water. Their life almost is dictated by emotions and how they feel. Oh, I don't feel like going out tonight. I'm sorry. I feel bad, so I'm not going to go out. There's no other reason, just by the way they feel. I've noticed that with my brother, the Scorpion, much more dependent, on his feelings and that than other people. He'll say to you, "Oh, I'll come to the city on Monday. I'll drop by and see you." You're waiting all day Monday, and he doesn't turn up. And so you ring him on Tuesday, say, "Oh, I didn't feel like it." Yeah, it's typical. So
I'm a Scorpio, Santos.
Yeah. And then when the sun comes into Leo, well, there's the beast of prey, the only one in the zodiac. So the sun here, the sun is in the number 5. The number 5 has to do with joy and pleasure, the 5th house of the zodiac. And the lion, the king of the jungle, the king of the zodiac, he is confident and luxurious, and he is quite the showpiece, you see. People who are born under this sign, really make it on, Broadway, Hollywood. They have a good time because they love the limelight. The sun in Leo. These people, I like to use the example of people like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones, both Leos. Mick Jagger was sort of July Leo, and Robert Plant is more sort of a late, I think he's the 20th of August, so very late, close to Virgo. You can see that feminine Virgo influence coming in on Robert Plant. But usually Robert Plant used to sing, and he had this golden mane, and it was just beautiful hair. He had wonderful hair. And he always had his shirt open at the top, and you see this golden hair coming. He's very hairy. And he always loved to show his chest, you see. That's where Leo is, in the chest, in the heart. So it's great to have a Leo as a frontman singer, because, or a woman, like, for instance, Jennifer Lopez, Madonna, they are Leos. They love the limelight. They're quite comfortable there, They just are so comfortable. You can't get enough of it. And you can see their fire, their chest is always prominent. You see the Leos. Fire, fixed fire. But it also has to do with the lower passions, you see. That animal is also able to be very, very passionate, emotional. So it's fire like Aries, but it also has a very earthy nature to it. Remember, the summer quadrant is the negative quadrant, you see. So there's quite a bit of negativity going on in this quadrant, really. For instance, you come to the 6th house and you've got the house of illness. The 4th house, the number 4 has to do with death, as I explained last week. In Japan, Shi is death. 4 has always been associated with death, you see. So that's what the sun brings when certain ones are born under this sign of Leo. But you can see that they radiate with a sort of a solar energy, the Leos. They're very positive. They're very enthusiastic. They've got good bodies, good backs. Usually they've got really good backs because the sun, Leo rules the back. And so they have a strong spine, and they've got a lot of spine and a lot of heart. They're courageous, you see. So these are the virtues that the sun brings as it goes into all the signs. And people are not noticing this. I mean, wow. How can you not notice these things? The moment you pay your attention to astrology, the moment you begin to study this subject is the moment you begin to understand all things. There is no other science that can do this. There is no other science except for astrology. So Virgo. Now, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and it's a mutable earth sign. So these people are sensual. The Leos were intuitive. Fire is intuition, you see. But we've gone back to earth now. And when you go back down to earth, you're dragged into your senses, you see. So these people are sensual, but very different to Taurian sensuality. These people have got Mercury in their system. And for women, this is a beautiful, magical sign. It brings a lot of beauty for the women born under this sign. You know, Sophia Loren, Raquel Welch, Shania Twain, just to name a few of the ones that we know sort of more commonly. Virgoans, and in particular, if they have Venus in Libra, the sign next door, well then they are exquisitely beautiful. Virgo, the Sun in Virgo with Venus in Libra, wow, these women just glow. They are magnificent, you see, and it suits women to be in that sign. It really does. It makes them discriminating because Mercury does that. It's discriminating. It's Mercury analyzes. The sign of Mercury, the motto is I analyze. So these people are analyzing and analytical, you see. They do a lot of thinking with their sensuality. So they've been gifted with two virtues, really. They've stolen the mental qualities of the air sign and mixed it up with their earth, their mutable earth. So they've got a lot going for them, Virgoans, really, when you consider it like that. Next sign is the seventh sign, which is Libra, and it begins the bronze neutral period, you see. And that's what the scales are there for. The scales are there for neutrality, for balance. The scales always stand on the equinox, the autumnal equinox. But it's a sad day. It's really, really sad what happens for the sun when it goes through the scales, really. In a symbolical way, you know, in a poetic way, not in reality, but you know, you see the sun in all its glory, spring and summer, and everybody enjoys these seasons, and we get fruits and wine and all sorts of good things that come from the photosynthesis, and we can fill around about October when the scales turn up. Everybody will have already brought in their bread harvest, because Virgo is the sign of the harvest, and the virgins would have gone out into the fields, collected all the grains, and then they go back into the mill houses and they turn those stones and they turn that grain into bread. And bread is the pan in Latin, so they put the bread in the pantry for the coming winter. And the scales are a reminder of this. The justice, you see, they inflict punishment on the sun. The sun now is falling. And in fact, the scales bring in the season of the fall, autumn. And that's what they symbolize, the fall. And why is the sun falling? Well, in astrology, Libra is the sign of the fall of the sun. Remember, opposite, Aries, is the sign of the exaltation. Wherever a planet exalts, directly opposite, it will fall. So, you see, the sun exalts in Aries, but opposite, in Libra, it falls. And that's when the fall happens, because everything is based on the sun. But the interesting thing is, the opposite to the sun in its qualities would be Saturn, and Saturn exalts in Libra, you see. So that's the interesting thing to look out for. So Librans, they have Venus as their ruler, which means they will have beauty. And in fact, Librans are physically, they are beautiful people to look at. They are really the straightest, the most balanced. They've got good bodies, they've got a lot of strength, and they've got pretty good minds too. My son is a Libran, and that, you know, if he's going to win an argument, I might as well just bow out and forget about it, because their minds, when you couple their air, cardinal air, with copper of Venus, it's like you're arguing with someone who is, their thoughts emanate from a copper furnace. That's the feeling I get from Venetians or from Librans. Yeah, their minds are like furnaces with copper. I really can't elaborate on what I mean by that. You'll have to meditate on that. But next time you're in the company of a Libran, remember that, and you'll see what I mean. You'll understand. There's copper in their thinking.
A sign of partners in marriage as well.
Exactly, and that's because Venus is there, the loving one, balance, two-ness, your partner, you and your partner. You see, the opposite, Aries, is just about you. Forget about anyone else. But Libra and Venus, she has a different attitude to Mars. Mars is warlike and fighting, interested in individual endeavors more so than endeavors where you can have other people join in. Venus brings other people in, you see. That's why it's the house of relationships, you see. And if they have Venus also in Libra, along with the Sun, they will have a lot of beautiful form, beautiful bodies. These people are gorgeous to look at. Next sign is Scorpio, water, fixed water, intense emotions. But these people, they don't have a feminine planet ruling them or a neutral planet like the other water signs. You see, Cancer's got the moon, so that's suitable, really.
That makes sense to me because I'm in touch with my masculine side.
Oh yeah. Girl, female Scorpios, yeah, they sure are. And Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the significator of air. Jupiter is air, so air is neutral. So therefore, Pisceans, they have a neutral ruler. Cancer has a feminine ruler, and the third water sign, Scorpio, has a masculine, martial Mars ruler. So, man, you've got a lot of action in Scorpio. So Mars is the phallic. When you look for the male toilets, you'll see the symbol of Mars on the door because it represents the phallic. And, of course, Scorpio rules the generative area. So these people are in the business of generation. Generation is what they do. In fact...
Manifesting.
Yeah. It is an area of manifesting, exactly. And just like Aries is, and so is Leo. Manifesting from the heart, Scorpio is manifesting from the generative abilities that humans have been endowed with. Motherly. Of course, when you look at the combination of Mars with water generates, Mars is a phallic, therefore you've got double generation, okay? And you've got fixed emotions. The symbols for Scorpio are the eagle, the serpent, and the scorpion. The serpent is the wisdom, the eighth sign. Scorpios can be very profoundly religious and spiritual, and the wisdom comes in there. They are very, very discerning and very priestcraft. They are the priests sort of thing. And it's very deep spiritual sign, and it has the number 8 connected to it. 8 is the symbol of eternity. You see, death and destruction and transformation, and that's what Scorpio and the wisdom of the eagle. You see, these people also have the wisdom of the eagle in their sign. You see, and you will notice their features. Most Scorpios have like a beak. They have a beak. My brother, my Scorpio brother who looks like me, the only difference is his mouth is more like a beak.
His mouth? You said his mouth, not his nose?
Yeah, his mouth, his lips.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the bird. They have a beak. And it's cute. It's quite interesting to see. Our Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, she's a Libran, but she doesn't look like a Libran. She looks like a bird. In fact, most people call her an emu.
Is her rising sign Scorpio?
Yes.
There you have it.
Her ascendant is Scorpio, and I knew that straight away. I mean, when it came to the time for me to guess what her sign was, I saw the bird. And I said I picked her as a Scorpio, but when I went to a chart, it was Libra, and I was disappointed. But then I thought, well, look at the ascendant. There it is, Scorpio.
Well, my rising sign is Leo, so I can sort of look like a Leo too, you know.
Yeah. my rising sign is also Leo. Now, if I could have had $1 for every time someone said to me, Santos, if you were an animal, you would be a cheetah or a panther or a lion or a tiger. If I had $1, I'd be a billionaire by now. Yeah, I never knew what that. I just thought, oh, that's funny, you know. Okay, I'm a cat. Okay, all right. I used to love cats when I was young. I had cats all the time. But this thing about me being a cheetah. I had one friend, a Lebanese girl, and she always used to just call me straight out cheetah, you know, because I was fast, skinny, and I looked like a cat. Now, I had no idea until I became proficient with astrology, and then it all dawned on me, and then I realised all these things in the past. You see, it's so sad when people condemn astrology because they're missing out. They don't see 99% of the stuff that's going on around them. They miss it all. They don't understand why people think that they look like a certain animal as opposed to another kind of animal. You know, they don't understand this. They haven't looked at their ascendants. They don't know what their moon signs are or their sun signs. They don't understand the science of astrology. Therefore, they can't see how they manifest this particular look, you see. Anyway, the next sign is Sagittarius, and these are the fall. This completes the fall months, you see. The horse, the centaur, and it corresponds with the hips, and the hips are just a shortened word for hippo, the horse. And another feature that you have is the cauda equina at the bottom of the coccyx on the spine, and that's also related to the hips because cauda equina means the horse's tail. At the bottom of your spine, you have a horse's tail. Well, this is all in the domain of Sagittarius, you see. Astrology explains anatomy, physiology. It explains everything about it. Now, these people are fire signs, mutable, and when the sun is in their sign, you'll find that they usually have larger than normal hips. They have strong hips. My wife is Sagittarian. First thing I noticed about my wife when I met her was her hips. Not that they were strangely shaped or anything like that. I just noticed them. I don't, and this is actually before I understood this science. When I met her, my eyes went to her hips, and she's this little pony, born on the 26th of November, Sagittarian. Now, these people are jovial. Jupiter rules them, and Jupiter is Jove, the jovial one. You see, the people before, the Scorpions, they've got Mars as their ruler. They're not so happy as the Jupiterians, you see. And, of course, depending on all things being equal, you may find some of your Scorpio friends are much happier than your Sagittarian friends. It doesn't guarantee this because there are other things that will affect this science. There are, and I'm going to get into that in the next hour, you know, things like hard aspects and squares and oppositions and things like this. So there are other things that change the nature. That's why there are no two people alike on the planet. Marcus Manilius, the great astrologer, said, through these planets turning through the skies, the sun and the moon and all the planets going through the signs, all the different shapes and flavours and kinds of human beings are produced on the earth. So look, we might have a pause there then, since it's at the top of the hour, and we'll finish off with the last quadrant of Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces, and then I'll go through some of the planets and explain what they bring when they are found in the signs.
Okay, sounds good to me. At this time, I'd like to give a shout-out to a friend of mine's seminar, Duncan O'Finian and Miranda Kelly. I'd like you to take a look at their website, DuncanO'Finian.com. That's FINIOAN. And they have a survival seminar coming up September 14th and 16th in Los Angeles. And it's called the Practical, Tactical, Magical Survival Seminar. It has psychic warfare training, martial arts, crystal healing, and a lot more. I've been there, and I have to say it's quite the vibe fest, and I totally recommend, if you can possibly go to that, please do. And if you can't make that one, go to the website and sign up for it, because they're going to be doing them in lots of other cities in the future. And the song we're going to play for the break is by Moses Child. It's called This Is Babylon. See you back in about 4 minutes.
This is Babylon. This is Babylon.
gasoline to fuel their cars. No sound from the telephone or radio. Who will save you? I don't know. But the water's been rising past the floor, and the only ones left are the poor. Babylon, tumbling down. This is Babylon, tumbling down. This is Babylon, tumbling down, tumbling down. A week after Trina and in the street, still bodies rotting in the heat. CEOs finding ways to cheat. A government that won't admit defeat. Big Easy out to Babylon. The people waking up to what's been going on. Ask where's the dough, but the dough's all gone. People finally see who you're preying on. Income speaks. It says forget the mink. Social security is what we seek. Let me make your income peak, and you bribe us with a 20 to the middle class per week. Third world in the USA. Look who's getting left behind today. Your schools will rot if the rich won't pay. I'm singing it. Can you hear my say? Tumbling down. This is Babylon. Tumbling down. This is Babylon. Tumbling down. Tumbling down. Tumbling down. From electric cities out to Babylon, people waking up to what's been going on. No way to get too far when there ain't no gasoline to fuel their cars. Third world in the USA. Look who's getting left behind today. Your schools will rot if the rich won't pay. I'm singing it. Can you hear my say? Babylon, better find your Eden. This is Babylon. Oh, you better find your Eden. This is Babylon. You ain't got time to get there neither. Cause you're hungry, and everybody else is too. This is Babylon, tumbling down. This is Babylon, tumbling down. This is Babylon, tumbling down, tumbling down. This is Babylon. 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 Tumbling down, tumbling down. From electric cities out to Babylon, Babylon. Tumbling down, waking up to what's been going on.
That was This is Babylon by Moses Child, and this is Truth Connections Radio with our returning guest, Santos Bonacci. And I think we left off on the last quadrant of astrological signs, I think starting with Capricorn. And I got a quick question. I was born on January 20th, and I've seen it as both since it's on the cusp. So am I really a Capricorn or an Aquarius? Because I think you would probably know, Santos.
Yeah, look, you'd have to say Capricorn, 20th of January.
Okay.
Yeah, but please notice the Aquarian influences you have been. Yeah, attributes. Your sun is right on the cusp, so it's poking its nose in Aquarius territory. So it's still giving you a lot of Aquarian features. So it's beautiful. It can be really good, and it can be trialsome to be born on the 20th, 21st, 22nd. Those dates are really, really powerful, 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd, because those people have a lot of two signs, and I've noticed, that they're very dynamic, and it's a beautiful thing, really. For me, I was born close to a cusp, 24th of March, so there's a lot of Piscean coming through in me.
Sure.
But you would have to go with Capricorn, Rand.
Okay.
Yep. And Capricorn, so we did Sagittarius, the jovial ones, These people are also dualistic. There's the hero is coming up through the human nature, or the human is coming up out of the animal nature. It depends. You can have either or both. But you see, it does denote that one, the Sagittarian, is striving to rise upward. You see, and leave behind the lower nature. And of course, it has to do with the number 9, the 9th heaven. You see, this quadrant of 7, 8, and 9, these are really, really good numbers in Kabbalah and in numerology. Whereas 4, 5, and 6, remember the negative one I spoke about before that, they're all sort of death, hexing, etc. Whereas the number 7, 7 is the love number of God, 8 is the number of eternity, 9 is the 9th heaven, the quintessential. 9 represents 3 times 3, which is 3 trinities. I mean, how complete is this number? It's perfection, you see. And so these people born under this sign, they're so blessed. And if they could only take advantage of this sign, the fact, you see, they have 2 portions of fire. One from Aries, which is, Aries has to do more with mind fire, and a portion from Leo, which has to do with heart fire. 2 centers of fire in the body. And Sagittarians have both, you see. This is why they're special. They're very lucky, and they would have to be known as the happiest of all the signs. Capricorn is very earthy, very earthy. You have 3 goats there. You have the mountain goat, the scapegoat, and the pan goat. So you take your pick what you want to be, but probably the pan goat would be the most. But you'll notice that Capricorns, a lot of them act like the scapegoats, Some of them act like the mountain goats. They're always charging, climbing something, They're always trying to be overly ambitious somehow, or, they're trying to achieve something by climbing with their knees, sort of thing. My little sister, my older sister, the Capricorn, she was like that, always trying to please her father. And she still is, down to this day.
Glory, honors, and distinction.
Yeah. The 10th house, exactly. And the reason being is because, again, you'll notice that Saturn is there. His orbit takes 29 years, and so it's the longest. And so that's why you only receive your glories and your honours and distinctions toward the end of your life. It's rare that you're going to be glorified at the age of 5, for instance. So that's why it has to do with that. And it has to do with that because of Saturn. Saturn represents these things. He is the father. Opposite him is Cancer, and that's the moon. She is the mother. So you have this mother-father pole existing with Capricorn and Cancer, you see. And that's why, you see, once the sun has hit the 10th house, it's climbed a very, big mountain. And so that's why it's sitting at the midheaven now. Capricorn always is associated with the 10th house, and the 10th house is always found on the midheaven. And the sun is always happiest when it's up there, in the midheaven, midday. That's the correspondence, you see. And so these folks, they can be quite stubborn too, like the goat, and they can be quite cool and calculating like Saturn. Saturn is cold and dry. And these features also spill over into Aquarius, ruled by Saturn. So you've got 2 signs next to each other, which have Saturn as their rulers. It's quite an interesting and unusual part of the zodiac wheel, that part. And they're quite different, but they are clearly Saturnians. Now, I have 2 sisters from these signs, an Aquarian and a Capricorn, and I see that. I'm able to study Saturn in my sisters, you see, as opposed to Mars. But the Capricorn is a go-getter. As I said before, he's a climber, and he's a cardinal sign. These people go and get things. They start things. They initiate things. They're good at leading. Earthy, very earthy, and their senses are activated. They love to be grounded on the earth, and you'll find that they love to do things like, go and see the pyramids, touch the pyramids, smell them, and use their senses more so than the others. It's beautiful to see. Aquarians, very loquacious. They have air, fixed air. They can talk. You've got to run away if you want to stop them from talking. But again, these people are very humanitarian. They have mind activated. They are always thinking about, mental things, always working their minds. They're always thinking. Oh, it's just incredible. But they also love to talk. Idealistic people, they've sort of got their heads in the cloud because Aquarius rules the shins, and it sort of gives them that levitating factor. They're sort of floating. They don't really have their feet on the ground, these people. They are really airy. And then Pisceans come along, and Pisceans are mutable water. One fish is a doubter, one fish is a believer. The motto of Pisces is I believe. These people can doubt themselves 1 minute and believe in themselves the next. And they have this inner war going on with their emotions. Water is emotion, and Pisceans have this emotional thing, you see. And it's in the feet. The sun is in the feet at this time. So we've gone through the whole body, and this is what the sun does. The moon, she brings the more secret inner nature. You see, she defines that. So Aryan moons, for instance, they have their qualities. Aries is the martial one, so they can fight. You don't want to tackle someone who's got an Aryan moon because the way they react is very martial. They'll take you on. Taurians, they will also bring their aspects and things to Taurus. Secretly, these people will be, they will react with stubbornness, firmness, like the bull. Imagine the bull. Picture the bull in your mind, and you see the way they react. Taurians, they're not Taurian moons. They don't retaliate too quickly. It takes a little bit of time. They're a little bit slow in their reacting, but it's moon-like in Taurus. It's very firm. The bull is firm. It's unmovable, and so on and so forth. As the moon goes through the signs, she also activates the inner nature. You see, the sun is all about the ego, the you, the personality, right? The ascendant, the rising sign, is also part of this. I'm not going to go into the rising sign, though, because I want to really just show folks what the planets do when they are in the respective parts of the body, because most people do not see the planets as journeying through the body. In medical astrology, this is so important. It's so important to know where Saturn is, because Saturn brings coldness and dryness wherever he may be. If Saturn is to be found in Libra, for instance, he will bring cold and dry qualities to the kidneys, and anything else that is aspected to Libra. For instance, I'll give you some of the diseases that Libra can produce. Abscesses, goiter in the 6th and 7th degrees. In the 7th and 11th degrees, you get jaundice of the kidney and renal pelvis. So there you go, the kidney, you see, Libra. 15 degrees, 16 degrees, eczema, stroke. Now, eczema is a 1. My son has always had eczema. He's a Libran. And he's got a bad aspect. He actually does have a bad aspect to his Libra house, you see. So he was always going to have skin problems. And so this is why he needs the sodium phosphate for that problem there. Now, other diseases for Libra is eczema, stroke, Bright's disease, tuberculosis, bladder trouble, and bronchitis. Now, the ancients knew of these problems thousands and thousands of years ago, because they knew that as the planets go through the body, like the sun, when the sun's to be found in Libra, the sun brings electric influence into the sign. It's magnanimous. It brings life and vitality. It's the vital planet. Saturn is the opposite. He's going to take it away. So if you've got them both conjunct in Libra, rest assured that this is going to affect the balance of that sign. And you need to find out what degree it's in and what are the humours of the planet, so that you can then begin to cure that problem, that disease or illness. And it can be done, and it has been done. And guys like Galen, Fronto, Paracelsus in the 15th century, all these great, great men who healed people of their illnesses, they did so by means of astrology. In fact, astrology was studied in the universities on and off throughout all ages, except for the last couple of hundred years since the banksters have had their way, the Rothschild dynasty, etc. They have gone out of their way to ridicule astrology and make it look like it's a pseudoscience and just not pertinent to the modern information age, where we're so sophisticated and intellectual and advanced that we don't need this hocus-pocus science that hasn't been proven in the laboratory. It's not scientific, etc., according to them. And the religionists, of course, have been brainwashed to tell you that it's from the devil. They don't know who the devil is. They've never met him, but they reckon he's responsible for giving us astrology. Well, I don't know. Yeah.
So laughable, it's not even funny.
Oh, it is. It's not even worth mentioning. We need to just go away from that childish kindergarten state of mind of the lower-minded herd, which unfortunately have been, ruling the planet for thousands of years now. But that's all about to change, guys. So lift your heads up. Now,
thank God for that.
Yeah. Now, Mars. What does Mars do when Mars goes through the planets? Well, Mars is hot and dry. It's the active principle. The opposite would be Venus. She's the passive. She's the passive receiver of energies, you see. So Mars, in the signs, will absolutely do something similar to what the Sun does, but not as positive. Mars is a malefic, and his rays are harming mostly. Can be good. Mars can be good. It depends on the aspects. Now, what are the aspects? Well, the aspects are when you put all these signs in a circle, and if there's a planet situated in one of these signs, and then there's another planet situated 90 degrees away from that planet, 90 degrees is a relationship between the two planets which is not a good relationship. That's a bad aspect. You don't want too many squares in your chart. So if you're going to go into your website and do your chart, and you find that you've got a couple of these squares and an opposition or something like that, an opposition is 180 degrees. So let's say you're an Arian, born on the 5th degree of Aries, but Mars is to be found in the 5th degree of Libra. That is directly opposite. That is an opposition. There's no other way to see it. There's no other way to explain it. That's an opposition. That means that Mars is opposing the Sun, and those parts of the body will be affected. It's very likely that someone like that will get headaches, because Aries is the cerebrum and the head, and those precious glands like the pineal gland, the optic thalamus, they're all connected with Aries. So if Mars is in Libra, in the 5th degree of Libra, and your Sun is in the 5th degree of Aries, you need to get on top of that one. And these bad aspects in your chart, let's say you've got 3 bad aspects in your chart, okay? Most people have about 3 or 4, average, 3 or 4 bad aspects. I've done charts where people have had none, and I've done charts where people have had about 10 bad aspects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Life's rough for them, I bet. Lots of lessons.
Yeah, but what you can study is another field of astrology, the transits and the solar returns. The transit, what happens is, for instance, I was born 49 years ago, so all my bad aspects, they are in my chart and they will never change. They're fixed. But today, the Sun is, it's the 20th of August, so the Sun is in the last degrees of Leo, and let's see, where's Mars and Saturn are in Libra, Uranus is in Aries, Pluto's in Capricorn, Neptune is in Pisces. I don't know where Mercury and Venus are. They're too quick to follow. The Moon, I haven't checked for a couple of days. So, but anyway, those slower moving planets, you can pretty much, you don't have to check up on them every week. You can know that Mars is going to take 2 months to go through a sign. Saturn will be there for 2 years, 2.5 years in a sign. But the transits, you see, if you study the points, the degrees where you have bad aspects in your chart, if you study that degree and are aware of that degree, then what you need to do is you need to check when a planet is going to be going over that degree. Now, that degree might turn up at, say, the 21st of August. So tomorrow, I might have something in my chart right at the end of Leo. You know, I might have a square there, say Saturn. Saturn's in the last degrees of Leo tomorrow, and it's a square, and it's a bad square. And tomorrow, Mercury's going to be, say, squaring it tomorrow, right? Well, rest assured that something is going to provoke that. Mercury will provoke that aspect. And you need to then, you know, do your research to find out what Mercury does. What is Mercury going to do to Saturn in Leo, in a square? Well, it's easy to work out. You see, Saturn coagulates, and Mercury, which is quicksilver, Mercury makes things fluid, you see. So these two elements don't go. They absolutely don't go together. And so they can work against each other in such a way. So Mercury will probably rub that really, really hard tomorrow. And I'd probably notice what it... let's see, what would that be, the last degrees? I'll probably get goiter and neuritis. 28th, 29th degrees of Leo is neuritis, you see. So it'll probably stimulate something like that. So you see, why I'm saying this is, most people who have no knowledge of astrology, all of this stuff is going on in their lives. They have a good day, and they're on top of the world, and they're skipping about, and they're whistling, and woohoo, you know, they're happy. Next day, you wouldn't know them. You know, what happened to this person? Next day, they're miserable, depressed, angry, vicious, tired, lethargic, unreasonable, and you look at your friend and you think, what the hell happened since yesterday? And you can rest assured that it is the one and only, it's astrology. It's the planets, the placements, the transits. That's what it is. And, you know, when I was a churchgoer, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, you'd often have brothers in the congregation. They'd come up to you, have a chat with the brothers, you know, after the meeting. And, you know, you'd go up to Brother Tom. Brother Tom, how you going? And Brother Tom says, oh, Brother Santos, Satan has been attacking me in the last week. Oh, I've had so much trouble. Satan is really, really, really attacking me. The demons are really, really having a go at me. I've been tempted, and I've had a really bad week. You know, that's the way that the churchgoers go. They think, you know, there's devils and Satan out there. You know, they're not entirely wrong when they say this, but they're not entirely accurate either, because Satan is Saturn, and Saturn is always the one that goes around bringing trouble, mostly Saturn and Mars. But you can rest assured that Saturn, and this is why they call him Satan, you see, and they've always worried about Satan attacking them, these churchgoers. Well, let's have a look at Saturn as he goes around the signs, shall we? My Saturn was in Aquarius when I was born. So since Saturn takes 29 and a half years to do a complete circuit of the zodiac, when I turn 29, if Saturn is badly aspected, you can rest assured that I am going to have some trouble at the age of 29. And sure enough, I had more trouble than I've ever had in my life at the age of 29 for my Saturn return. It was awful. It was an awful time. My son was newly born at the time, which was a beautiful, joyous moment. But I was a Jehovah's Witness. My wife was a Jehovah's Witness, and her parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. And they were, I won't say are, they may have changed now, but at the time, it was 91, 92, I think it was. Yeah, in the early 90s. My son was born in 92. But anyway, at the time, the amount of trouble that my then wife's parents caused in my marriage, untold trouble. These people were vicious, stupid, animalistic, ignorant, but in the congregation, they looked really good. You see, my wife's father, ex-wife's father, was an elder in the Italian congregation down here in Melbourne. There's about 6 Italian congregations in this city. And her mother was a pioneer. And pioneers spend 90 hours a month in the field ministry, knocking on people's doors, trying to save them to Jesus. But what her mother doesn't tell the brothers in the congregation and the people that she knocks on the doors is she doesn't tell them that she violently beats her daughter up to a pulp probably every second day. See, my ex-wife went through hell with those parents, and I felt the brunt of it when Saturn returned. And so I had to move away. I moved up into the country. We moved and we changed our lives and we got away from my wife's parents. But my ex-wife also had a bad Saturn in her chart. I forget where it was, but I've checked the chart, and she's also had a bad Saturn. And when she turned 29, all she wanted to do was divorce me. And she did, after 10 years of marriage. And you'll find that a lot of women, I don't know why this is, but women in particular, when they turn 29, 30, there's this, I don't know, there's this big change that happens in their lives. And usually it's a very demanding, trialsome period for women around 29. You might want to check that one. Do some research. Look into it. 29 is a Saturn return. Now, what that means is Saturn has returned. It's gone right around, and he's now found to be in the place where he was when you were born. So if he's badly aspected, you can rest assured your 29th year will not be a good year. And many people have all kinds of troubles. They have depression, they have suicidal tendencies, they have marriage breakups, especially involving the wives at the age of 29. They go through like a mini menopause. But then you see Saturn also brings, when he squares, every 15 years, he also squares with your sun sign. So at the age of 15, this is why 15-year-old adolescents, some of them go through a real rough time, They transition from, usually sort of an innocence into, they get thrust into womanhood or manhood, around about 14, 15. Life really, really changes. I remember I got sick around 15. I got sick. I had gastric problems, my stomach. Of course, I've got Uranus and Pluto in Virgo that are badly aspected, so that guarantees that my stomach will always be sort of agitated, digestion problems and what have you. But because I eat mostly raw food and look after it, I'm on top of that. But at 15, when Saturn squared my sun, that affected me. So look out for 15, 30, 45, 60, 75. These all involve Saturn. Saturn returns or semi-return or square around that age. 35, 45 is a 1. A lot of women, they go through menopause, what they call menopause, you see. And you can pretty much connect that directly with Saturn. Saturn is the disturber there. So rather than blaming the devil, you see, condemnation without investigation is the height of stupidity, as Einstein said. And I often catch people that approach me, and if I should make the mistake of mentioning astrology or asking them about their birth signs, etc., and some people respond in shock and I don't believe in that anyway. Astrology's, I don't believe in that shit. I've had people say that to me so many times, and I'll just sort of kindly ask, depending on what sort of people they are, I'll kindly ask, what do you know about it? Have you studied it? Have you learned anything? And if they're reasonable people, I'll try to help them to see, please try and do a little bit of research into astrology. Start researching it and understanding what it is.
To me, it's just amazing how everything coincides with body parts and character traits and physical traits. It's just amazing. I don't know why anybody wouldn't be interested in it, but they're not. But that's why we're here, to tell them how it is.
Yep, exactly. So they go through life unawares of what the planets are doing. You see, the ancient astrologers knew that those seven, that serpentary octave of 7 planets, the visible lights in the sky that are always rushing around that belt of the zodiac, the ecliptic, they knew that the solar system and all of its components, all of them, they knew that was what was known in the ancient theology as God. That's God, but it's not the prime creator. It's not the source, the cause. These planets are not the cause. They are the demiurge, which means they are the second God. They are the formators, the cosmocrators, the Elohim. Planets and suns, they are secondary bodies. They are not the causes. Not directly anyway, the direct source. It's like a carpenter does not build a house from scratch. He doesn't make the wood, he doesn't make the nails that makes the house. He gets them from nature. So nature is the source of the ingredients that the carpenter uses to build a house. So you can say that the carpenter built the house. Well, he did. But he built the house from pre-existing parts that nature provided. So the solar system is building bodies, molecules basically, that's all we are, we're just a bunch of molecules. But those planets, they are the ones that assemble the molecules. They are the ones that conscript them into service. They are the ones that direct them and mold them. They are the molders. They are the potters of Memphis, tar, you see? And they go around molding, and they give you your body shape.
That's why you need to rule your planets and not let your planets rule you.
Exactly, because they are not the cause, which you are. You actually are. Human beings are connected to the source. We are above the planets because our souls were produced outside of the solar system. If our souls were produced under the solar system, then we would never, ever be able to escape it, and we would never, ever be able to go outside of it, because the solar system created us, produced us, therefore it rules us. This temporary rulership of the sun and the planets over our bodies will only last as long as it needs to, as long as it takes for us to transcend their energies and their restrictions and their conditions. You see, as our souls come down from the Milky Way, as Plato explained, and all the great philosophers, our souls descend from the Milky Way. Our Milky Way is Isis. It is a feminine galaxy. And our souls slip down through those stars and are attracted by Saturn. Saturn is the outside planet that we can see with our eyes. You don't need to regard Uranus and Neptune and Pluto at this stage. So Saturn is the 7th planet and the highest ranking, 30-year orbit. Next is Jupiter with a 12-year orbit. Next is Mars with a 2-year orbit. Next is the Sun with a 1-year orbit, obviously. Then Venus, 228 days, I think. Then Mercury, 88 days. Then the Moon, 28 days. And this is the order of the heavens that are above our heads. These correspond with the 7 chakras in our bodies, the 7 vices, the 7 virtues, the 7 colours of the rainbow, the 7 tones of the musical scale, the 7 chambers of the heart, everything. Everything is 7, the 7 orifices of the body, etc. It goes on and on. Everything is a septenary, right? And so our souls are brought in to this solar system through Saturn. Saturn gives us the first condition. You see, we come from outside of this solar system, and we are unconditioned consciousness, and we are directly connected to the source. That's why this quote-unquote artificial rulership that the planets have over us, chiefly Saturn, That's why the Bible says that Satan is the ruler of this world, because he does. Old man Kronos, he rules the world. He's the ruler. And that's why in another verse it says Satan has blinded the minds of the unbelievers, because he does blind us. We get blinded by Satan. Our unconditioned consciousness is severely restricted when we go through the rings of Saturn. Saturn gives us one of the vices. They all have their vices and their virtues. Saturn is not all bad. He is not all bad. It's just that his bad is really, really bad. But when he's good, he is really, really good. He's the saviour. He is a saviour. Because as our souls descend from these rings, the seven heavens, they receive a vestment. Saturn gives prudence, Jupiter gives judgment, Mars gives will, the Sun gives divine will, Venus gives sense and sensation, Mercury gives intellect, the Moon gives imagination, and the Earth gives us our molecular body, made up of all the elements. But we have to return that body, and we've got to return it back to, as dust you are, dust you will return. That body goes back to the tomb, you see. We come from a womb, and then we end up in a tomb. That's how our lives end up, you see. So the bodies remain here on Earth, where it belongs. The dust stays here. But the spirit, the unconditioned consciousness, seeks to ascend, always seeks to ascend out of the captivity of these planets. You see, it's a beautiful place to live here on the Earth. There's nothing wrong with this whole thing. But what has happened is that it's caused many people who don't have knowledge, who don't understand the holy science, to give untrue teachings. For instance, they will teach that this dualistic world that we live in is totally unnatural and totally evil. The Gnostics used to believe this, by the way. The Gnostic Christians, if there is one weakness in Gnostic Christianity, it would be their attitude toward matter. And they considered matter to be evil. Now, I don't think that they considered it to be evil, in the sense that the churches do. I believe that it was more of a poetic evil. You see, matter is the opposite of spirit. Spirit is free. Spirit is freeing. Matter is not freeing. Matter encloses you in bodies. Matter is coagulating, and she wants to bring all of her children together in love, the mother. And see, so this is where the love of the mother is turned into evil. It's strange, but it's not real evil. But it's evil because, well, in the end we suffer a lot, If you don't look after your body, you get Alzheimer's, arthritis, whatever else. You can have heart disease, you can have dementia, you can have asthma, piles. Goodness, some people have got 40 of these things, and they've got all these treatments that they're taking. They carry their pills with them everywhere, and they're dropping pills every 5 minutes because they've got, this is for my heart, this is for my asthma, this is for my diabetes, I'm stage 3, I'm stage 4 cancer, I'm stage 4 this, I don't know what they got. But they've got all these diseases, you see. So, well, how would one that is so sick really, really appreciate their beautiful bodies? Their bodies are full of acid and mucus, and they're probably consuming, a lot of cooked meats and dairy products which cause fermentation and acidity and mucus in the body and destroys the body, and then you get all this stuff like arthritis and everything like that. If only they were taught that the best food for the human being, organism, is the fruit and the vegetable. But not these fruits and vegetables that have been concocted by the controlling elite for the last couple of thousand years. They've hybridized. Yeah. They've hybridized our food supply.
Frankenfood.
Yeah. So people in China, for instance, they have 3 meals of rice a day, and no one tells them that rice is full of cyanide. And so, when they turn, 7, when they get older, they start to have a doubled back. Their spine starts to bend, and they walk around. I've been to Japan, and I've seen thousands of little old women, and they're sort of like, their face is almost between their knees, and they walk around with their head so low, and they believe the myth that these people get like that because they worked in the rice fields. That's a crock of shite. How they get like that is by eating rice. Rice is totally and utterly hybridized, full of starch, therefore acidic, therefore it will cause your back to double up like that, double bend. So these foods that have been hybridized are so dangerous. See, if I have cooked food, which is the only thing that I eat these days that is cooked, will be spelt spaghetti or spelt bread. I'll have a toast with some honey on it, and I toast that bread. That's the only cooked food I have, outside of which I do not eat cooked food. Spelt spaghetti or spelt bread, because spelt is the only grain that does not have starch in it, therefore it is not acidic. But within the next few months, it's my goal to eliminate cooked food. I'm on organic, uncooked, vegan food 100%, and I'm the one that is benefiting from it. I've never had any of those illnesses that I mentioned before, and I never will, because it's what you put into your temple and how much you love your temple and keep your mind strong and clean and understand astrology and learn how to rule those stars and feel them when they come in. I feel the planets when I wake up in the morning, and I'm inclined to be grumpy, and I stop and I quickly go to the computer, check out the transits and everything like that, and I say to myself, well, there's Mercury, and if he's not doing a trick on me today, I'm going to thwart him, the little devil, because Mercury's a tricky little one. He's a little devil. He might give you intellect, but he also brings a lot of havoc into the lives, because he's going around so quickly, 88 days, it's hard to keep track of him, and he'll give you trouble. He'll give you trouble quickly. It'll come and it'll go real quickly. Whereas, something like Pluto, who will be rubbing over your transit for about, 6 months, he'll bring you trouble for 6 months. But Mercury and the Moon, you might have 10 minutes of trouble, but they will bring trouble. They will absolutely bring trouble. They don't always bring good. None of them do. Not even Jupiter. Jupiter's the greater benefic, but who? Wow, you check out some of the sicknesses and diseases that he can bring. I urge people to look into medical astrology first, before all the other, horary astrology and horoscope readings and transits and solar returns and all of that other those other aspects of astrology. I would go immediately to medical astrology, because your temple, right now we have a very limited time to get our temples alkalized and happy for the great shift that is coming, and it's a coming. It may not come on the 21st of December 2012 as we are expecting. It might be years after, It might even be next month. But already we are noticing big shifting. People who were sleeping, just a few weeks ago, a lot of people are awakening in their droves, and they are awakening so quickly. Within a year, they make so many changes in their lives and advancements you wouldn't know them. There are so many people transforming their lives in these last days before the end of the cycle. So, as this shift comes, please don't be nervous or anxious at all about what's going to take place, because what will happen is what will happen. We can affect the transition. We can make it better, smoother. We can also benefit individually on a different level to others. Many, on the other hand, will be flat out just destroyed. But that doesn't mean an eternal destruction. It does not imply that. But it implies that they've failed. They're living in the lower mind. They haven't accessed the higher mind. They haven't made the advancement necessary. Their vibration is low. Hence, they must lovingly go to another place to continue their evolution or their development. I don't like using the word evolution because it's so connected to Darwin, and basically Darwin's evolution theory, which is totally wrong, based on the true theory of evolution, but in a very material way. In other words, the survival of the fittest. If you're the best killer, you're going to hang around longer than the other weaklings that don't deserve to live because they can't kill as well as you can, That's not at all what the universe is about. The universe is about survival of the most conscious, not survival of the fittest. Get rid of that stupid, idiotic word, the fittest. The best bodybuilder is the most, apt to live forever in unconditioned consciousness because he's got great biceps. What a crock of shit. And that people believe that is it's telling, isn't it? The gospel says that many will reap 30-fold, 60-fold, some will reap 100-fold. The seeds that are planted in our hearts, the seeds of our souls, will reap the harvest at the end of the harvest. We are at the end of the processional cycle. We are also zeroing in on the end of many other cycles. For instance, there's a 240 million year cycle of the revolution of the galaxy. That is also zeroing in at the end of this year. It's the end of the processional cycle. It's the end of a 104,000 series of 4 processional cycles. It's the end of the age of Pisces, the start of Aquarius. It's the end of... There's another cycle which evades me at the moment. Nonetheless, we can see all the signs. We can see what's going on. We've had the Venus transits, the one in 2004, and we had the one in June this year. This is also the return of Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, Jesus. Call it what you will. It's the same character in different languages. The end of the harvest is the end of the road for now.
I know that the last time the 7 planets aligned in Aries was a long time ago. Does that also happen this year?
No. No, it's
when is
not
that supposed to happen again? Do you know?
I don't know, and I don't think anyone does know unless they've got a really good computer that they can just project into the future and see when the planets are going to be all aligning. But they won't align in Aries for a long time, for millions of years. The next time they turn up in the same sign will be Sagittarius.
Okay. I also find it very interesting that the Pleiades correspond with the pineal gland.
Yeah.
I heard you say that in one of your talks. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, where are the Pleiades if not in Taurus? Where is Taurus if not in the head?
Right.
Therefore, the Pleiades, that gem, that jewel, that beautiful, brilliant dwelling place of God, is right there in the pineal gland, right there next to the optic thalamus, right there where all the action happens. Once we have returned the good back up to the heavens, Aries, where they came from. And the pineal gland, if you read the book of Genesis, I recommend you do, anyone. The Bible's a great book to read. But in Genesis, there's a story of Jacob. Jacob climbs his ladder, and all of a sudden he finds himself at the top of the ladder where all these angels are descending and ascending. He's just wrestled with an angel. He's had his name changed to Israel. And whoops, oh lordy, if he doesn't see God face to face, and if he doesn't call the place pineal. So he's climbed the spine, the spinal cord, from the stone. You see, Jacob laid his head on a stone. Well, it's unmistakable what the stone is. If you look at the sacral part of the spinal column, the vertebrae, they are 5 fused bones, right at the bottom of the spine. 5 fused bones. This is where Scorpio is, the generative area. And Jacob lays his head on this stone and has a dream and a vision, and he sees, all of a sudden, he finds himself face to face with God, and he says, I've seen God face to face, and yet I have lived. I lived. I shall call this place pineal. That's the pineal gland, people. And it corresponds with the Pleiades, and of course Alcyone, the highest of the 7 stars of the Pleiades. That is the master god star of the whole system. All ancient theologies point to that star as God, the throne of God in the Pleiades. So it's very important, and it's very important to study astrology in this way, So you can go through a journey of the body, starting at the head, and you can see how all the stars in the sky actually correspond. For instance, each sign, the 12 signs of the zodiac, each one has 3 deacons associated with it. So Aries has 3 deacons. Deacon means 10 degrees. So, for instance, the first 10 degrees of Aries, it's Cassiopeia. Then the middle one is Perseus, and then Cetus. Now, what do these deacons tell you? And what parts of the body do they correspond with? Well, it's easy. Cassiopeia is the queen. She's seated on a chair, and she's got like handcuffs. She's sort of in prison because she was vain, and she said that she was more prettier than the Nereids. You see, so she was punished. But in Aries, placed in Aries, the queen, she's the queen of heaven, and in the Persian myths, she holds a crescent moon in her right hand. Whereas Perseus next door, the middle deacon, he's holding Medusa's head, and he's just cut it off. And he's pretty happy about that, because we all might want to slay Medusa's head. You see, Medusa would be connected with the medulla oblongata, which does not enter into Aries. It gets chopped off at Taurus. So Perseus is there to slice Taurus and Aries right down the middle. And that's what we must do, because Taurus represents the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is bellicose, at war with the cerebrum, which is the place where God dwelleth within, the kingdom of God. And so there is Perseus saying, you get rid of that, you get rid of the darkness below, get rid of the lower nature, just like God says, you Israelites, you go down into the land of Canaan, you make sure you kill the Perizzites and the Jebusites and the Ammonites and the Gideonites, etc. Because that's the lower nature. All of these heroes are killing beasts and slaying lions and slaying dragons. You know, St. George kills the dragon, Samson kills the lion, David kills the lion, and Goliath, and etc., etc. Hercules kills the lion. These beasts are the lower nature. The Israelites also are included in this. They must kill the Canaanites. Oh yeah, canine. What's a Canaanite? Well, that's a dog. Well, you don't want to be a dog. You want to be a human being. You want to be a hero like Perseus. You want to slay that beast. And then next to Perseus is Cetus, the dolphin, or the sea serpent, the sea monster. Cetus is the sun. It's the symbol of the sun. So here we have the sun and the moon, Cassiopeia representing the moon, and Cetus representing the sun. And here we have the hero who slays the lower nature, all in Aries. Then you come down to Taurus. Taurus has 3 deacons: Orion, Auriga, and Eridanus. Notice the or, and or sound. Gold, you see? Auriga, A-U, Auriga. He's the hero. He holds the little goat Capella in his hand. And he's not far from Gemini. He's not far from Taurus. He's in the middle there. So he's one of the 7 heroes, Auriga. And these heroes, these are Abraham, these are Noah. Here we find David, King David is there. All the heroes, they're all in the sky. Orion begins with O-R. O-R in Latin has to do with gold, ordo, or time, order. It also has to do with light, because gold, the sun being gold, produces light. So Orion is the optic thalamus. But Orion, and it's also the brightest constellation in the heavens, bar none. There is nothing in the sky. You can look forever if you like. There is nothing that is as bright as Orion. In fact, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Sirius, these are the top 10 brightest stars in the sky. Orion contains 3 or 4 of the brightest 10 stars in the sky, not to mention the brightest Sirius, which is basically the big dog, Canis Major, that follows Orion. So Orion is the light of the world. That's what the optic thalamus is. The optic thalamus is the inner eye of the temple. It's the innermost seeing eye. It's the one that you say, oh yes, I see what you're saying. You don't see it with your physical eyes, which are also connected to the optic thalamus. the sensory nerves that are connected to the optic thalamus are connected to the eyes, you see. So, but it is the eye that sees spiritually. So Orion is a great hero. We must all go up and pay a visit to Orion. And we do that by starting at the bottom of the spine, where Ophiuchus is. Ophiuchus is a deacon of Scorpio. That's your sign, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
And also Hercules. You see, so Orion, this is interesting. This is very interesting. There are 7 heroes in the sky along the ecliptic. Taurus has 2 of them, Orion and Auriga. Scorpio has Ophiuchus and Hercules. Now, there are 3 more, Bootes in Virgo, Cephas in Pisces, and Perseus up there in Aries. Remember, Perseus is slaying Medusa. He's up there in Aries. So that's where all the heroes are. And you can actually add an 8th hero, Aquarius. But Aquarius, Ganymede, he doesn't actually go around doing all this, killing and slaying and heroic stuff. He's just sort of there, one of the 12 signs. So you can exclude him or you can include him at your will. But Ophiuchus gets his name from, he's a serpent bearer. He's carrying 2 serpents, and or 1 serpent, but he's strangling the serpent, you see, because Ophiuchus is a hero, and he's trying to, you see, the serpentine energy of the Kundalini begins where Ophiuchus is, in Scorpio, the generative area. When you engage in sexual acts, you are actually engaging in something sacred, because that's where the sacred plexus is. It's all sacred.
Exactly. It should be anyway.
Yeah, it is. It's.
I'm talking about choices people make.
Exactly. And we've all made bad ones. I know I have. And we've all erred in that respect. But the point is this. The point is that Ophiuchus is teaching us to strangle the serpent. Don't be too keen. Don't be too keen when it comes to sex to rush in, because it's a very, very powerful dynamic energy that is being channeled into the body from the ether. It is so powerful and electric.
I get really upset, Santos, and I don't remember who these people are, but there's certain people that are pushing orgasm your way to enlightenment, and that just blows my mind. It's such a dangerous thing to say. It doesn't make any sense to me, because they're not talking about it being sacred. They're talking about it just being the way to get there.
Yeah. Look, there's no doubt about it. The orgasm can give you some insights. It can give you some great spiritual insights. The whole sexual experience can. But it's a two-edged sword. And only the wise should go treading there. If you think that you're going to have an orgasm every day and get enlightened and that's the way it's going to happen forever, you're seriously mistaken. It might happen once or twice here and there, and there might be some truth in it, but absolutely it is not the way to go. It's the abstinence of the orgasm that will, because that fluid must not be wasted unless for procreation, if you want to ascend. If you don't want to ascend, well, do what you want. It doesn't matter. But
you mean when you say procreation, making babies, right?
Well, if you want to use that fluid to continue consciousness, which is a good thing, a blessed thing, well, then you can give that fluid for producing another child, another conscious individual. And in Hermetic science, anyone who has a child is blessed. It's a blessing. It's a great blessing. One is more blessed to have a child than not to, in Hermetic science. I can read that straight out of the Hermetica.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because my baby's an angel.
Yeah, and it's a great thing to at least produce, to have one child, to have one progeny, and to continue that consciousness. It is a great gift. But also you have used that beautiful cerebral fluid in a natural way. You see, so but lust is really destructive, because we're inclined to just do what we will when it comes to sex, and no one's going to judge you. If you have an orgasm here and an orgasm there, there's nothing in the universe that will judge you, except that your bodily fluids are being drained from the body, and when that sacred oil is consumed, you die. So the juices are designed to be stored in the body. You see, when you see a 70, 80-year-old person who moves really, really well and looks really fresh and young in the face, rest assured that they have lived a life of moderation, and they look juicy. They don't look old and withdrawn and wrinkly. You see, wrinkles and all of that, it comes from lack of oil in the body, and the oil is produced in the cerebrum, and it goes down to the sacrum, and the sacrum, you see, sex is supposed to get that oil, and if one knows the science of sex properly, they are able to transmute that oil so that it quickly goes up, you see. But if they should discharge that oil down below,
when the moon is in their sun sign.
Well, if they should have an orgasm when the moon is in your sun sign, they will absolutely destroy that oil for that particular month.
Right.
They will destroy one cycle, because the lunar cycle is all about the moon is planting a psychophysical germ in the solar plexus just above the sacrum every month when it transits the sun sign. So in my case, I'm Arian. When the moon is transiting Aries for 2.5 days, I need to be a good boy. I need to not get angry. I need to be loving, peaceful, moderate, balanced, happy, joyful, abstain from sex, alcohol, overeating, and all of the vices, anger, jealousy, bitterness. Just detach yourself from the world for those days. Let baby Jesus grow in the solar plexus, which is Bethlehem, and you will be the beneficiary of the great results. And I would be very careful about your sexual practices after that. One thing I would do definitely is at least 1 month every year I would abstain from sex to complete the cycle so that seed can truly ascend and reach the optic thalamus at least once. And basically that's what the principle of tithing is all about in the Bible. When God says to the children of Israel, he says, can you possibly rob God and yet you are doing this very thing? God is the cerebrum, and we rob our bank accounts, we loot our bank accounts by discharging the oils from our bodies at will, randomly, without taking any note about how beautiful our temples are and how sacred these fluids are, without paying any attention to that. And this is how we rob from the Lord. The Lord, remember, Lord has the 2 letters O-R in it, L-O-R-D. Or is gold, light, and time. And so and orgasm also begins with or. So if we want to send our orgasm...
Very interesting.
Yeah. If we want to send our orgasm up to Orion so that we can have some order, some gold in our brains rather than in our testes and our generative area, it's our choice. Where do you want to have your orgasm? In the brain or in the generative area? Yeah, take a pick. Go for it. You're free to choose. But when you have the orgasm downstairs, you are robbing from the Lord. That's all. And there's no bearded Jehovah sitting on a throne who's going to say, oh, you had 160,000 orgasms. You can't enter into the kingdom. I'm sorry. It's not about that. It's about you. You are the vibration that you are. If that vibration is good and holy and pure and moderate and continent, and you've got a lot of juice in your temple, my motto is take care of your temple and salvation will look after itself. You see, there's lots of gurus that will tell you that, oh, you do this exercise 3 times a day, or you come to this retreat and you pay $1,000 to come and see me and I'll teach you how to do an exercise and you'll ascend and you'll do this. Some people teach, here, take this entheogen. Take these Amanita muscaria mushrooms and you'll see God. Yeah, you'll see God. But if you're not ready and you've got a lot of acid in your body and your temple is not pure, I wouldn't be taking any entheogen.
Exactly. Not a quick fix for anybody. You got to do the work.
Yeah. It can be dangerous. You can have psychosis.
I bet.
Yeah, and so one needs to tread carefully, you see. I've taken many entheogens in my life, but, I probably once every 3 months I'll indulge. I don't need any more than that. I've got my own ascending going on. I've got my own I've always been connected with the higher mind. I've probably not lived out of the higher mind. I've lived like an idiot more than anything most of my life. Because
in reality, a healthy desire starts in the head anyway, not below.
Yeah.
If you desire someone or something, it starts in the head. If it's a healthier way to go at it.
Yeah. And the controlling elites are happy for mankind to remain in the idiot stage of the lower mind. Idiots abound. Educated idiots repeating indoctrinated false opinions as they go around. You see, an educated person will tell you, we're overpopulation, we're overpopulated. An enlightened person will never use that word because it doesn't exist. There's shortages. We've got shortages of water. Pretty soon we won't have any fresh water, and we won't have any petrol. It's peaking out, and we won't have this, and everything's short. And that's why the government steps in to regulate everything so that they can tax it and continue to keep us dumb and run the show of circus, bread and circus, for the idiots that we've become. We've defaulted our responsibility. We've neglected our responsibility and let it default to the controllers, you see. So they tell you, they educate people to, there's shortages. But an enlightened person knows that there's no such thing as shortages. Shortages is that's not part of the vocabulary of an enlightened person. So there's a big difference. Enlightenment comes from Aries, education comes from Taurus. The right brain, the hermetic, the higher brain is Aries, the lower brain is Taurus. Now just have a look at some of the characters that turn up in Aries and Taurus. As I said before, the sun exalts in Aries. The sun is the timekeeper, order. Order comes from Horus. Just take the H away from Horus and you get order in Italian, time, and gold. The moon exalts in Taurus, right next door. Well, if that ain't interesting. You see, every planet exalts in a sign. For the sun to exalt in Aries and the moon to exalt in Taurus is very telling. When the true rulership dignities of those signs are Mars and Venus. Mars is in Aries and Venus is in Taurus. But here's the sun and the moon come along to make their statement and to give further evidence of the science of astrology being true and everything being interrelated. Of course, the sun, who is hot and dry, will exalt next to his buddy Mars, who is Moses, who is also hot and dry. The moon is cold and moist and like Venus. So, of course, she's going to be exalting in Taurus next to Venus, right? So, what you see is the boys upstairs and the girls downstairs, you see? And this is where the story of the fall comes in. Because Taurus, in the Jewish system, Taurus is this evil sign. It's like Aries is the Lamb of God, the Saviour. And Taurus is just evil. It's materialistic. It's the number 2 division, the earth sign. It's materialism, everything like that. But if you have a lamb, in the Bible it talks about the lamb and the bride. Well, who's the bride? Well, a lamb is only going to marry a ewe. It's not going to marry a goat. It's not going to marry a dog. It's not going to marry a human being, right? So look at the word ewe, E-W-E. The W is basically just a double V. So remove the W from the word ewe and put a V in there. And you have Eve, the wife of Adam, who is the atom, who is the number 1, who dwelleth in Aries. So when you look at Aries and its opposite sign, Libra, both of these signs sit on the equinoxes. Or, in the daily cycle, Aries starts at 6 a.m. and finishes at 8 a.m. Libra starts at 6 p.m. and finishes at 8 p.m. Libra is the balancing sign, and the word for balance is level or even. Now, take a close look at those words and you'll find that Eve, even, and level both contain the word Eve in there, who is the ewe, who is the bride of the Lamb. But also what happens at Libra at 6 p.m. is the evening. she introduces the evening, because she brings the even day and night. She sits at the termination of day and at the introduction of the night. So Eve is always eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The good is the day and the evil is the night. The evening. The evening is evil. And all of these words come from Eve, which come from you, which is the bride of the Lamb. And because the Lamb is the one, and he produces Eve out of, well, God does anyway, he gets a rib out of Adam. Very important, this detail, this symbolical detail that the rib comes from Adam. It's like ionic bonding. When you take an electron from an atom, you make it a positive ion, and the other atom becomes a negative ion. So that's why Adam's positive and Eve is negative, you see. And so Adam, when you look at the word dawn, you see, so you have the dawn and the evening. Dawn is an anagram for Adam. And, of course, I've already explained that Eve, who Eve is, she's the evening, she's the evil, even, leveling one who eats. See, Adam, or the dawn, resides at the tree of life. There are two trees planted in the Garden of Eden, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, Eve eats from that tree, and that's where Eve is at the evening. And Adam, he brings the life. He represents the life in the dawn. You know that you're going to be alive for another day when the sun comes up. But you're not so sure when the sun goes down. You don't know whether you're going to die in your sleep. You don't know whether an earthquake's going to swallow up your house in the middle of the night. The night brings Satan, the fall, the darkness. In fact, Libra, as I said before, Saturn exalts in Libra. And so there he is. He is there. And one of the deacons of Libra is Lupus. Lupus is the wolf. So what's a wolf, the wolf of darkness, doing at 6 a.m. every day? And the other deacons of Libra are the cross, the Southern Cross, and the crown, Corona Borealis. So this is the crown of thorns that the Son Jesus Christ gets as it transits Libra and gets judged and gets crucified on that tree and betrayed to the darkness, the Dark Lord, Saturn, who exalts in Libra. And there's the victim, Lupus, the wolf of darkness. And there's the cross, the Southern Cross, that Jesus dies on. All on cue. There is nothing that is not on cue. Nothing. None of it. Now, I don't make these things up, and then, turn up at radio shows like yours and then just blurt them out. I have done, I don't know, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of reading good books, though.
Yes.
You've got to know what books to get. If you get a book that wastes your time and leads you up the garden path, forget about it. You've got to go to the right books, and I'm so lucky in that respect. I've gone from book to book to book to book, and it's just connected all the dots for me. And
you're great at mentioning those books too, Santos, in your video. So if anyone wants to read it, all they have to do is take notes when they watch the video, and they can know exactly what book you got it from. It's nothing you've made up. For sure.
Yeah, and the best book that I promote for this joining the dots is Thomas H. Burgoyne, The Light of Egypt, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I would read anything that man has written, because the man is a Hermetic philosopher. He founded the Hermetic Brothers of Luxor in the 1800s. He went from England to America to establish the school there. He understood the Hermetic Egyptian wisdom, and I'm teaching basically his stuff. That's where it comes from. So I would read those books first. They join all the dots. They explain this Egyptian science of how Aries always rules 6 to 8. Taurus always rules the next 2 hours, 8 to 10 in the morning. Gemini always rules 10 to 12 in the morning. And that's that's the golden age. That's the positive part of the day. Aries is the symbol for that. Then Cancer comes along at midday. And negativity. She introduces the negative triad, the negative quadrant. Why? Well, because the sun commences to wane on the 21st of June. The sun's been climbing since Capricorn, the goat who climbs the mountain, at the other solstice, 21st of December. He's climbing, and then when he reaches Aries, he exalts. So there's all this climbing, exalting, conquering, winning, and then all of a sudden the sun hits Cancer and there's nowhere to go but down. So there's the negative triad, Cancer. And then the sun must slaughter the lion, and then the sun must go through the Virgin, the harvest, and then it must be judged at Libra for the fall. And all of these cardinal points, check out the cardinal signs. They've all got scales or horns. Capricorn, Aries have horns.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cancer, the scaly crab, and Libra, the scale. Why? Because those symbols are symbols of the cardinal cross, the tropical points, the equinoxes and the solstices. And these are the 4 sacred points of the year. Familiarize yourself with them, know them, understand them. Marcus Manilius 2,000 years ago said, first and foremostly, familiarize yourself with the cardinal points. In fact, if you give me a second, I'll find that quote. How's that? I'd like to share that with you. Come now, he says. This is in the second book, Astronomica. Now, along with Thomas H. Burgoyne, if you don't read Astronomica, which consists of 5 books, and this is the first mention of the houses in history. Marcus Manilius, the astrologer to Caesar Augustus. Astronomica is one of the most magnificent, highly encouraging books you can ever read, and you will join all the dots. In fact, in the first book, he introduces it as the holy science. I'll read that first. I know I'm diverting, and I do this quite a bit, but when the information is juicy, you got to get it out, no matter what order it comes out. Here he goes, right at the introduction. It says, deeper knowledge of heaven was first granted to earth by the gift of the gods, for who, if the gods wished to conceal it, would have guilefully stolen the secret of the skies by which all things are ruled, who of but human understanding would have essayed so great a task as to wish against heaven's wish to appear a god himself, to reveal paths on high and paths beneath, and bottom of the earth and stars obedient to the appointed orbits of the void. You, God of Silene, are the first founder of this great and holy science. Now, who is the god of Silene? Well, of course, it's Mercury. Moses. Moses takes on 2 aspects, Mercury and Mars. I said that before. But Moses is also Mercury. And so, Mercury, and you'll find that Moses, in the Torah, what's the Torah if not rota? Torah is an anagram of rota. Rota means wheel, the wheel of the zodiac. So the person who wrote the Torah, the wheel of the zodiac, was Moses. No wonder he stuck all these clues in there, like Israel and the 12 sons, the 12 judges, the 12 stones that the Israelites, that Joshua placed on the bed of the Jordan as they crossed the Jordan into the Promised Land, the 12 this, the 12 that. I mean, if there aren't a million 12s in the Bible, they didn't drop enough clues, did they? But anyway, I was getting back to the cardinal points. This is what he says later on in Astronomica, Book 2. He says, come now, prepare an attentive mind for learning the cardinal points. 4 in all. They have positions in the firmament, permanently fixed, and receive, in succession, the speeding signs. These points are charged with exceptional powers, and the influence they exert on fate is the greatest known to our science, because the celestial circle is totally held in position by them, as by eternal supports. Each cardinal sign, however, enjoys a different influence. They vary according to their position, and they differ in rank. And then he goes on to say the ranks, and that's about it. There is a quote here that is more powerful than that, where he really, really stresses, please, he begs the astrologer, the new initiate of astrology, he begs him, please, understand the cardinal points first. Do not proceed unless you understand what the cardinal points are all about, and then you'll understand the holy science.
Very cool.
Yep.
Santos, are there any alignments this year that we should be looking out for that come at the top of your head?
Oh, yeah. Look out for when Saturn enters Scorpio, which will be mid-October.
Yeah.
Because that's also when the sun enters Scorpio just slightly after Saturn on about, the 22nd of October. But But Saturn gets in there on the 16th or the 17th, I believe, and the 19th of October is traditionally the day of stock market crashes. 1929, 1987, and 20 years later, 2007, all occurred on these dates. Two of them on the 19th of October. One of those crashes happened on the 25th of October. Why? Because of what I explained before. When the Sun enters Scorpio, or in particular Libra, it enters into its fall. You see, a falling market, a crashing market is not good. This is a bear market. You see, Taurus, the bull, represents the bull market. That's when Taurus is on the side when the Sun is waxing. Arcturus, the bear, is on the side where the Sun is waning.
For those who don't know, bear market means the market's going to go down. Bull market means it's favorable, it's going to go up.
Yeah, and October is really, really strong this year. I've looked at it. I've looked at from the 15th to about the 25th, and what I see, I can explain this another time, if you have me back. What I see is absolutely the total, absolute destruction of fictional economies, fiat-based currencies. The economy will absolutely it will crash on that, if not before, because it's poised to crash. I mean, and it doesn't take, it's not, I'm not really, putting myself to the test here. It's anyone can really predict that it's going to crash soon, It is. It will crash soon. But look out for October, around about that time, toward the end of Libra, because it's very, very powerful. There's some powerful squares. The fact that Saturn is in Scorpio, which is the house of death, that's where Saturn was on the morning of 9/11. He was in between the two plane crashes. The first plane crash was 16 minutes before the second plane crash. Saturn was transiting from the 9th house into the 8th house.
Wow.
The 9th house is the house of journey, and the 8th house is the house of death. So they timed it. I mean, 9/11, by the way, is the number of Satan. 9/11 is Saturn's number. Well, how do I know that? Well, Saturn takes 29.45 years to complete an orbit. So those are his numbers. 2 and 9 come to 11. 4 and 5 come. Not only did the elites cause the towers to fall down when Saturn was in Gemini, the twin, but they waited for Saturn to be right at the end of the 9th house, the house of journeys, because those people in those planes, they were journeying, and they were taking long journeys. They weren't getting in their car to go down to the store to buy some bread. That's a short journey. They hopped in planes. You get on a ship, you're going on a long journey. So the 9th house is the house of long journeys. The 8th house is the house of death. And that's where Saturn is going to be on the 15th, 16th, 17th of October for 2.5 years. And believe you me, he will bring all of your wishes that the false economy is destroyed, and it will be, and the economy based on love and true energy will grow up in its place. Now, just another little tidbit for the Saturn thing that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned that Saturn was in Gemini in 2001 when the twins fell. Well, when the twins were being built between 71 and 73, that's when Saturn's return was. Saturn was in Gemini again. So the buildings were up for 30 years exactly. They were always going to be. They were built in the twins. They were destroyed in the twins. They were timed to crash when Saturn, who is in the twins, is in the 9th and 8th house dealing with travel and death. And if that's not enough, I mean, I can talk 6 hours about all the transits and aspects that were occurring on that day. On that one day, there were hundreds and hundreds of things that were aligning in the heavens.
Yes.
Ensure that day, fateful day, believe me. And October will be the same. I promise you that.
I'm sure.
Now, I made a prediction about July 4th, July 7th. Some of the listeners may be familiar with that. I made that in January and February and March, very early in the year. I saw that there was some very powerful aspects. Well, what happened on that week was the Libor scandal. Now, the Libor scandal is the beginning of the end of all of this scandalous criminal banking behaviour whereby a few rich elite can steal the wealth and sovereignty from the 99%. That was the beginning. And I saw that in July, early July, and I see that again in mid to late October. So look out for that one.
And thank you, Santos. We'll have to have you come back on and talk about more of that. We have about 10 minutes left before we lose sound, because I need to leave enough time to play the ending credits. I know that Liza's got a question. She wants to know how much of what happens to a person's life is connected to the zodiac and how much can just happen spontaneously. And we do have a couple more questions, just to let you know, Santos. We'll try to answer these quickly.
Well, most of the conditions for what will happen in your life are predisposed and preconditioned in your chart. But only the ones who know this and who in the higher mind can escape the negative aspects of this, and they can rule their stars, otherwise be ruled.
I heard that.
Yeah, so, but nonetheless, you will not escape all of these things entirely. You will not. There will always be aggravations at the transit points where planets are rubbing up on your bad aspects through the year. So I'd go through your chart, make a note of all the degrees that are badly aspected, line them up with the dates. For instance, the second degrees of Aries, where I was born, is March the 24th. It's pretty easy. The first degrees of, say, Leo will be around about July the 24th. Okay? So it's pretty easy. And what you do is you put those notes on your calendar. So you might have about 6 dates. And so you put, January 18th. Saturn is badly aspected with Mars on January the 18th. So you put that down on your astrological calendar, right? And then you go down to Gemini, Venus is badly aspected with the Moon, and you write down May the 29th. All right? So you've got 2 bad aspects. You've got January and May. Then what you do, a week or 2 before these dates come up, you have a look at the transits, or you have a look at planets that are going to be going over that degree of your chart. It might be entirely another planet. It might be Neptune, whereas you've got Saturn there. But Neptune, going over that point, and especially if he's badly aspected, if he's got a square or an opposition, well, he's going to be bringing you some presence on that day, and they might not be good. So you need to know these days.
Yeah, that's why you recommend to check your chart on a daily basis, if you can, just to see what you're up against and be more armed, if you will, for the day or what you have ahead.
Yeah.
Santos, there's a quick question a friend of mine, Kyle, has. He gave this to me before the show. He wanted to know why the number 333 keeps coming up in his life since he was a child. I don't know if you have an answer for that, but curious.
Look, I don't really, but what I can say about 333, 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 9. 3 times 3 is 9. Times 3 is 27. 27 is this magical number. But you've got 9, Sagittarius. He should check his chart. He might be Sagittarian. He might have the moon in Sagittarius. His ascendant might be there. I would say one of those 3. Check the chart out, or there might be, 3 planets in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is screaming out 3, 3, 3, 9. That's what it's doing.
Santos, you say we know that in astrology everything is based on the sun, and do you just subscribe to the rationale that our sun is part of a binary star system, that there really is a secondary sun, and that is part of what the shift that's coming, and that's what's going to affect the new paradigm?
Yeah. There's a good book. It's only a very small book. It's like a brochure, but it's a classic. It's one of the great classics that come from the East by a great man called Sri Yukteswar. Sri Yukteswar wrote the book The Holy Science. Now, remember what Marcus Manilius said 2,000 years ago, right? The Holy Science. Anyway, I would recommend for listeners to read that book. It's one of my top 10 books of all time. For sure.
Great.
In there, he explains how the ancients knew that our sun is part of a binary. it revolves around another star. And it takes 24,000 years. He gives a figure of 24,000 years, which is the figure that I use in my presentations. In the West, in Egypt and Babylon, they came up with a longer figure. Their figure was 25,920 years. But when corrected, the precessional year is 24,000 years. And as we revolve around our binary star Sirius, when we get closer, and Sirius is moving toward our sun at 20 miles a second. People, if you're interested in facts, Sirius is traveling so fast right in the direction of our sun at 20 miles a second. Now, when our stars are close together in this binary, we are in the Golden Ages. When they are far away, we are in the Iron Ages. And that's what Sri Yukteswar explains. And so what's happening now at 2012 is the sun will take us through the sign of Aquarius, which happens to line up with the energy of the photon belt, the light of Sion, the dragon's breath, etc. And it brings in a short golden age. It's, like 2,000 years. It's not the 8,000-year golden age of when our suns are closest together, our son Jesus with its mother Isis, Sirius. But it is nonetheless, it is a golden age. We are about to enter that period. We are at the threshold of the golden age.
Yay, us.
Great.
Santos, will you mention your website for everyone, please?
Yeah, universaltruthschool.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Santos, for coming on. We'll have to have a chat later and talk about what we can do in the future when we're not live. That'd be great, and we really value your time and respect your wisdom. And I'd like to give a shout-out to my Luxitano brother, Helder Fafayes, for bringing you to us. I most appreciate that. He's a good friend of both you and me. So shout out to Helder. And I would like to tell everyone to please feel free to sign up for our YouTube channel. Just go to Truth Connections on YouTube. Sign up for our YouTube channel. And as soon as the new shows are uploaded, they should be emailed right to you. And also, please feel free to check out our truthconnections.wordpress.com for future events coming up. And also, please feel free to join our Truth Connections page on Facebook. I'd like to tell everybody that we're going to play a song, Going Out by Fred Cusinado, our friend, and it's in 432 hertz. It's called A New Earth, and you'll hear that right after Tamara's ending announcements. Be good to each other, everyone. Blessings and peace, and until the next time, good night.
Something happened here.
Hi everyone, Tamara here. Just a reminder that you can connect with us through Facebook, as well as subscribing to us on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/truthconnection. We'd love you to join us during live shows at blogtalkradio.com/truthconnections. And for information on upcoming shows, visit our website at truthconnections.wordpress.com. Thank you for your support, and never forget that the truth is reality, and the connection is you.